Would you believe Jalen Hurts will have his best season under new offensive coordinator Kellen Moore?
I would believe that. Listen, we know that the one thing that really bothered Jalen Hurts was he didn't really have the answers to the test as it related to the blitz. He had a terrible year against the blitz. Teams really came after him. I think that Kellen Moore is going to get him more answers to the test. And then, oh, by the way, you know that guy Saquon Barkley?
I've heard of him.
He plays for the Philadelphia Eagles now. He's going to be a huge help for Jalen Hurts and this Philadelphia Eagles offense.
Yeah, and you talk about that, Jeff Darlington. Yesterday on the show, we had the Saquon Barkley conversation with Joe Shane when he was told, like, hey, you can go test the market, but promise us you'll come back. And then he goes and signs a deal with the Eagles. Is this somebody who covers this league as an insider? What did you make of that whole exchange and the fact that the Giants really just let him walk?
Yeah, I mean, that was a fascinating exchange. And listen, it's always a little bit awkward and maybe cringeworthy to ultimately basically hear a breakup in public. It was kind of a strange feeling, but I will say this about the Giants. We'll find out because Joe Shane just wasn't believing that the market was bearing that type of a price for a running back. And the Eagles seem to be one of the few teams to be willing to do that. Now, the proof will be in the pudding because these teams are in the division together, which makes this all the more fascinating. And we do have a leader like Saquon Barkley who could be really utilized in an Eagles locker room that needs better camaraderie, that needs better leadership, that needs to find the mojo that they lacked last year during the meltdown. So while it felt like he didn't necessarily have his place within the Giants anymore, he definitely has more than one role to play with the Eagles this coming season.
Harry, you had heard Damian Woody say that he believes that under Kellen Moore, he could have Jalen his best career year. Yep. But with Saquon, how much does Saquon benefit Jalen Hurts now having one of the top flight running backs in the league?
Man, I think a lot. You look at a guy like Saquon Barkley, he can be that dynamic rusher that you want, but also an extension of your pass game. And we all know the wide receiver that he can be. When you look at the Christian McCaffreys, you look at the Bijan Robinsons of the NFL, you put Saquon Barkley in that category as well. But I think when it comes to the Eagles offensively, Jalen Hurts, number one, has to be healthy. He's going to be healthy coming into the season. He wasn't last season. But also what's, I think, pivotal for their success is being able to defeat the blitz. In 2022, and Woody, you brought this up, Shane Steichen meant a lot to Jalen Hurts. He had 10 touchdowns to 2 interceptions. Last year, that was 5 touchdowns to 8 interceptions. And I thought it was imperative that we see that change in Jalen Hurts in this offensive system. We've seen in the playoff game, Todd Bowles versus the Tampa Bay Buccaneers say, you know what? We're going to all-out blitz the Philadelphia Eagles because we know they don't have the answer to the test. They've shown that on tape all season long, and that's how they left the football season in 2023.
That's exactly right. You know, when Jalen Hurts got blitzed more in what we call cover zero, all-out blitz, than any quarterback in the National Football League.
Which, in my opinion, like that's a no. It's disrespectful.
That's disrespectful. When a quarterback of the caliber of Jalen Hurts getting blitzed that high, it just tells you what the state of the Philadelphia Eagles offense was last year. I think that's why Kellen Moore was brought in to give Jalen Hurts more answers to the test, and then complement with Saquon Barkley being there as well. Sure. Give him more outlets in the passing game, especially in those critical situations.
So it sounds like, at least for the Philadelphia Eagles' purposes, a year after making it to the Super Bowl, we'll put this all on the coordinators. You bring back in coordinators, and hopefully that makes the difference between what they were at the end of the year and what they were the year before.
But their defense better be better, because that defense was
Okay, there's a bunch of things that I want to talk about here real fast that I want to get into. The first thing that I want to say is it's hilarious to use the New York Giants, an organization has been so poorly run, where they overdrafted Daniel Jones, know that he's not that good, and yet they still paid him a whole bunch of money, which is hilarious. They're going to use that franchise as a means to say, well, hey, you know, the Giants let Saquon Barkley go, like, you know, maybe that's like kind of saying something, you know, and it's like, because that's what he was essentially implying, right? That like maybe the Eagles were willing to do something that, say, the Giants weren't, and like maybe there's something to that, right? Like they don't believe in Saquon or believe that they should pay a running back that amount of money, and therefore that's like an indicator of something. And it's like, that's an indicator of nothing. You do not use poorly run franchises as the Giants as a means to what you should do in the NFL, right? That's not your barometer. You don't use the Carolina Panthers. You don't use the Cleveland Browns. You don't use the New York Giants as a barometer of what to do. You use the 49ers as a barometer. You use the more recent Kansas City Chiefs as a barometer. You use the Eagles as a barometer, who have been wildly successful for the last 20 plus years. And it's like, you get the playmakers. Look what the 49ers did with Christian McCaffrey. That is a big deal, right? That is what you do. So this idea that using the Giants as any data point to figure out, like, this is what they were willing to do, like, maybe that's something. It's absolutely positively nothing, because they also paid Daniel Jones all that money, and it's like, that's comically hilariously the wrong move. So yeah, no, I wholeheartedly disagree with that. It's just, oh man, when he kind of said that, I was just like, that's no point in even bringing that up. If anything, the fact that they were willing to do that means more than not, honestly, right? It means more that Saquon is worth something when a bad team is willing to give up someone good like that. But now to kind of answer the question that was a little bit more directly asked, in terms of, will Jalen Hurts have his best year? I'm going to say no. And before you Eagles fans come at me, go look up my previous videos. I've spoken incredibly highly about the Eagles, but Shane Steichen is a genius. He is a genius offensive mind. There's just no doubt in my mind. It's going to take a minute or two for people to really recognize that, especially when he gets his quarterback situation figured out with the Colts. But he is in the conversation, and it's going to take some time, because he needs some time. But he is up there with the McVays, the Shanahans. I'm not going to say Andy Reid, because Andy Reid is GOAT status at this point, but he is in that room, right? He is in that conversation. He's invited to those parties where they all get to talk and say, hey, we're pretty smart, aren't we? And it's just next level. And I've spoken highly of Kellen Moore, because a lot of people want to kind of bash and bring Kellen Moore down, and I think erroneously so. That I'm not going to unpack that here, because I've done that extensively. But he's just not on the level of Shane Steichen. So I think what you got with Jalen Hurts, now, it doesn't mean that he's not going to be able to ball out. It doesn't mean that he's not going to be able to play great and be top level and be a top quarterback in the NFL. And the fact that this team should have more offensive weapons, and so it should be more potent, because relative to when they had Shane Steichen with that team, because they did add someone like Saquon, but it's just like a slight bridge too far. I think Jalen Hurts is going to play significantly better, especially from last season, but I don't know if he's going to be better than when he was with Shane Steichen. And if he is, I think I'm more inclined to believe that it would be more than because of that he just has a better team, right? Like, and I think a perfect example of this is Patrick Mahomes, where Patrick Mahomes had a better team in years past, and therefore his numbers were better. And this past season, his team wasn't technically as good, and so therefore his numbers hurt. Does anyone believe that Patrick Mahomes got worse as a quarterback? I know I don't, right? So it's just like, you can't just use the numbers. So, and even if, let's say they gave Patrick Mahomes a stacked roster, right? They gave him A.J. Brown, Saquon, and Travis Kelce and all this, and now his numbers kind of went through the roof. Does it mean that he's got better as a quarterback? No, it just means that his roster is better now. And so he has the ability to kind of just put up bigger numbers. So I think it's just like an interesting question to ask. Like, is it possible? Potentially. But I don't know. I think if anything, Jalen Hurts will play better football, but his numbers won't necessarily. Like, I think it's possible that Jalen Hurts can actually play better football than he did in 22 with Shane Steichen, but his numbers won't be as good, because he can have some of that load taken off with, say, like a Saquon Barkley. I think this offense will be less Jalen Hurts centered. It'll be less like Jalen go make magic, because I think there's going to be a big emphasis on keeping Jalen healthy. They'll probably maybe do the tush push less. They're going to rely on him, kind of running and trying to extend plays probably less. He'll probably, he's going to be a little bit more conservative, and it'll be interesting to see though, then, like, what that does for his numbers, right? Like how does that actually unfold? And I also think that this defense should be significantly better, and therefore, he won't have to kind of really maybe throw for 1,000,000 yards. And the Eagles should be able to have a lead and maintain that lead. And then they will be handing the ball off more, right? So it'll be interesting to see. But yeah, I just can't imagine that he's going to necessarily have a better a better year than what he had with Shane Steichen and a great roster. I mean, like, he balled out. Go look at highlights of 22. Who cares about the numbers? The numbers are honestly so often mean nothing to me. Watch the actual film. Watch what he did. I mean, it was unbelievable. I think he was the best quarterback that year in 22. I think he was better than Patrick Mahomes. I'm not saying that he's a better quarterback than Patrick Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes is definitely a better quarterback, but I think Jalen Hurts had a better season. He played better. If you didn't know anything about those players at all, you had no history, no nothing, no future, you had no nothing, you just saw these two players, you would have said Jalen Hurts is a better quarterback. He just did better things from my viewpoint. So I just think that's a high bar to be able to surpass. So it'll be really interesting to see, though, because I do think that he will at least be able to take a massive step forward. It will be interesting to see. And I think the blitz, all that blitzing that they did, was not so much as insulting towards Jalen Hurts. I think that was more said more about the Eagles offense and the coordinating. The fact that they could not set Jalen Hurts up to succeed in those things. Again, I blame coaching more than Jalen Hurts himself, because there's only so much Jalen Hurts himself as an individual can do if the play calling and the personnel are not there, especially if he's not healthy and banged up, so he can't escape like he had been able to do previously. That's a problem. And maybe he does start to lose his mobility and either shies away from it, or it's just because of injury issues and he just doesn't have it anymore. Then it will be up to him to kind of grow and evolve his game, and he will then have to learn, like, when I am being blitzed, like, what do I have to do? Because probably what I was able to do when I was 20, 21, heck, 17, 18, like, is drastically different. And we kind of saw something similar what happened with Dak Prescott. Dak Prescott was a little bit more mobile earlier on in his career. Then he had some injuries and just got older, and he kind of shied away from that mobility. He was never at the level of like a Mahomes type mobility or a Lamar or a Josh Allen, but he definitely kind of moved around more, and I feel like he's kind of established himself more as a pocket presence, and I think Jalen Hurts will have to do that, and I think he should look to actually more of these smaller, undersized, less mobile quarterbacks and see how they handled it, like a Drew Brees. And I think that's actually where Jalen Hurts should kind of get some inspiration, because I think Jalen Hurts, people, like, again, I think it is kind of stereotyping to a degree, not like in a negative way, but they just see a quarterback, they see that he can kind of run a little bit, they see that he's kind of fit, and they just automatically assume that he can't throw, that he doesn't have a good arm, not good accuracy, this, that, and the third, and they just like lump those assumptions on to a player like a Jalen Hurts, and it's just dead wrong, because Jalen Hurts has a great arm, great accuracy, great eyes, great view. So I think he's more than capable of doing it, but it's also having him understand this is the way forward, right? Like, this is how we need to separate you and make you elite. What makes you elite is no longer going to be that you're going to rip off on like a 20, 30-yard run. Sure, we still want you to be able to do that at times, but that can't, we want to get away from that maybe being like a foundational component to who you are. It seems like your body just can't sustain that for season after season. I think, to me, that's obvious. So I am interested to see what Kellen Moore does. My only fear is that Kellen Moore is kind of fighting for a job, maybe fighting for a head coaching job one day. And so it might be kind of like, hey, I'm just going to ride Jalen Hurts, to the wheels fall off. That's definitely a possibility. We see defensive coaches do that all the time. We see that's what I think that what they do with Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills. They just are like, hey, I'm a defensive coach. I'm Sean McDermott. Josh Allen's my ultimate get out of jail free card. So, all right, whatever. If he's going to take hit after hit after hit, whatever. I got to win a game. I'm fighting for my life every single day. And I just hope that that's not the approach that the Eagles will take with Jalen Hurts. I don't think they will. I think they want Jalen Hurts to be their future, their present and their future. So I'm really excited to see kind of how it all unfolds. But those are just my thoughts. I would absolutely love to hear yours. What do you guys all think? Do you think Jalen Hurts will have his best year this year? And do you think Saquon will be a difference maker for the Eagles this season? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single comment. So whether you agree with me or disagree with me, either way, let's get in some discussions. Let's get in some fights. But ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We are building an amazing community here, and I would absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all genuinely feel connected to. Something that we're really excited to be part of, and I think we're well on our way to doing it. And please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help with the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much, and see you next time.